Coming up on CTV News tonight, reaction to yesterday's suburb announcement, and we take a look at Nunweek Park. Welcome to CTV News, I'm Rob Cope-Williams. Yesterday's announcement of plans for the future of Christchurch's suburbs have met with mixed reaction. Here's Emily Cooper with the latest.
There's been mixed reaction from the government's announcement yesterday of the future of Christchurch's suburbs. While the majority of residents are happy with the offer for the Crown to buy land and homes, renters feel they've been left out. Along with this, the Green Party's earthquake recovery spokesperson, Dr. Kennedy Graham, says the announcement still leaves many issues unresolved. He says there are issues the government still needs to address, such as stating what will happen if a resident chooses not to leave the area and what the fate of the land in the red zone is. But Dr. Graham says the offer to those in the red zone is fair and reasonable. And MP for Waimakariri and opposition earthquake recovery spokesperson Clayton Cosgrove is concerned for residents in the Waimakariri district. Much of the area comes under the orange zone. He says before yesterday's announcement the area was days away from remedial work. He says now the government has decided to revisit the proposals for Kaiapoi and halt the rebuild program, which is causing major uncertainty. And we'll have more on the Waimakariri district next week.
Straight after yesterday's announcement, CTV News headed out into the eastern suburbs to see what the reaction is to the news.
With the government announcement of offers to buy earthquake-damaged land and homes from Christchurch residents, it is the end of one stage of the long road to recovery and on to another. It is a bittersweet proposition for residents in the eastern suburbs. Although they're now armed with options to move on, they will have to leave an area where they have built lives. Some residents are happy with the announcement.
Yes, we are happy, yes, because it's probably better than we had thought, because we originally thought we wouldn't be paid out for the land. Well, it means that we'll have some sort of options to consider, yes. And we won't be rushing into anything. We'll just wait and hear. I mean, if we get government valuation, that would probably be quite good. The house is only 7 years old, so we have quite a good government valuation, although it may not be market price.
But they're still unsure where to go.
Not yet.
No, it was a matter of what we had, what we could get.
Well, that's right.
You know,
yeah.
What's around?
Maybe over towards the northwest or something. But everybody's been wanting to go over there, I suppose.
We just want to get a nice home, comfortable, and we're not really sort of into the.
Well, it'd be just something smaller, probably.
Strata of
2-bedroom house.
Competing or anything with other people. They just want a home that's comfortable.
Yet despite some sadness, getting out appears the best option and the most logical outcome after 9 months of uncertainty. Those renting feel left out and are uncertain what it will mean to them.
Well, I'm a homeowner. They haven't really given anyone that's renting any options either, so devastated really. Well, they had this big announcement and they didn't really share much. That's why we need the answers so we can start looking. It's only homeowners that they're really given the choices to. It's quite scary, you know. Christchurch is, well, now nothing. It's basically ruined. And you can't build back on this land.
But it's now certain lives will have to be rebuilt elsewhere.
I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's realistic for people to move on. I mean, the government said all along they're trying to protect people's equity and stuff like that. I mean, you can't move on and get what we have for that kind of money. I mean, if they pay us outrateable value for our section, you cannot get a section in Christchurch for that money. So, what are you supposed to do? I mean, we want to definitely hang around in kind of the Christchurch areas. We're probably going to have to look at moving further out, though, to make it work for us. Because, I mean, there's no sections on this side of town, which is really heartbreaking when, we've got a 6-year-old son who goes to South New Brighton School, and, I mean, it breaks your heart to think you're going to have to rip him out of his school from all his friends and put him somewhere else, How do you explain that to a 6-year-old? It's going to be really sad for so many people in this area because, it's a lovely area to live. It was such a reasonable price for what you got. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how people go. I think it's good now the speculation's kind of over in the sense that we know 100% for sure that you can't build back on this land. I mean, we were pretty sure anyway that it probably wasn't going to happen, but until you have that definite answer, you can't think about moving forward, properly and stuff like that. But for now, we know we have to look at the future and kind of just look at our options and see what's out there and what on earth you do.
One thing Canterbury knows with certainty is that we now live in a seismically active area, but now residents have another certainty, that they will get money for their land and a chance to rebuild their lives.
And Pete Smith spoke to CTV staff again about their futures after yesterday's news.
Canterburyans have had now over 12 hours and to sleep on the announcement that was made at 1:30 by the Prime Minister yesterday about the future of housing in our great city. We talked to a couple of guys from the CTV team yesterday prior to the announcement, and we actually used the analogy that it was very similar to you want your exam results but you really don't know that you do. Well, it's come out now. Is it any clearer? How do they feel about what's been announced? Malcolm Harris is our sales manager, and he has found out, Malcolm, you are in the red zone.
We are in the red zone, Peter. Yeah, we are, and a lot of mixed emotions. Last night, my wife and I sat and discussed, what our options are, and we've got two options, obviously: take the government payout and go, or take the land value only and talk with the insurance company about rebuilding, and that's probably the option we're going to take. But it's I do feel sorry for those that are in the orange zone, because we thought we'd be there, because our house really isn't as bad as a lot of those in the street, but obviously we could have been the only one standing, so they've decided that the whole street goes.
How clearly was the message relayed to residents?
We haven't heard anything yet other than what we've seen on television.
So that announcement, was it clear to you? Did you get some real direction out of it?
Yes, I mean it was quite clear. So far as that, I went onto the internet and downloaded the options, and it was quite clear what the options were. It was either take the government package or take the land only, the land value only, and deal with your insurance company. And so we'll be talking with the insurance company today. The only issue that I do have really is the valuation that they've used, 2007 valuation. Now we've done some pretty reasonable sort of extensions to our house in the last 3 years. That's not on that valuation. So we need to discuss that with the insurance company, because we could lose upwards of $150,000 off the value.
You're assuming they would come and have a look first? Is that how it's meant to work?
Well, I'm not quite sure.
No.
We need to talk to them. Once again, we haven't spoken to the insurance company at all since February the 22nd. I mean, they haven't been out. EQC have, and they've made their decision, but we haven't spoken to the insurance company. So I'm assuming they'll come out now and have a look at the property and say, right, this is what we're going to do. And I imagine that it's going to be rebuild our house on another block of land that we purchase, I guess.
In practical terms, your house is only 8 years old, for goodness sake.
Right.
Most of the stuff is pretty new.
Yes.
It would be a shame if it went under the bulldozer, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We talked about this last night. It'd be nice, and I'm not quite sure how the process works, but it'd be nice if the insurance company would take all of the fixtures and fittings and actually put them in the new house that they're going to rebuild, because why should it go into a bulldozer's scoop? It just seems stupid, but I'm not quite sure how the insurance company works in this respect.
Have you and your wife considered an area, Malcolm? I mean, you're going to have to shift out of your area. Any idea where?
No, we haven't even, we discussed it last night, but we haven't really given it any serious consideration. I guess at the end of the day, they've given us 9 months before we have to make that decision. I guess we're going to be in the market now for a piece of land.
Chatted to your neighbours? How are they?
Yeah, we did actually. We had a couple of wines with our neighbours last night, and they're pretty relieved. They now know what direction they're going in, and I think that's the general feeling of those in the street, is that there is some sort of finality to the whole thing now, and they can move on. My only concern is that we could be the last ones left in the street, because a lot of houses in our street aren't livable anymore, and so they'll be moving out fairly quickly. We don't need to necessarily, but we could end up being the last one in the street.
So, do you feel there is a sense of urgency, this 9 months thing? I mean, will some people let it drag on?
Well, it just depends on what the negotiations are, I suppose, as far as the offers are concerned, and how forthcoming their insurance companies are. As I say, we haven't discussed it with ours yet. We will in the next wee while, but all things being equal, if they give the go-ahead to rebuild somewhere else, then we can move fairly quickly, and I should suggest we probably will.
There are meetings going to be held in hubs. Will you attend one of those?
I personally won't, but my wife will, and just to hear what they have to say. But I think the negotiations now really are with us and our insurer. And I mean, the government made it quite clear what they're going to do. That's basically pay out our land value, so we know where we're sitting there. We need to discuss with the council our valuation, because obviously it's way out of date, and then with the insurance company as to what they can do for us.
So has Mrs. Harris got the cartons and the sellotape out today?
She started last night.
Okay.
Coming up after the break, Hagley Park's entertainment hub is under construction. Welcome back. Sarah managed meetings are starting today in Christchurch for residents living in the residential red zone. The meetings are only for people who are living in the areas that have been marked red on the maps. Residents received a phone call to inform them when the meetings would be. Sarah are managing these meetings so that the people who need to be there have first option.
Further on, starting tomorrow through the weekend, Monday and Tuesday, I'll be attending a series of meetings in the different communities. So we're trying to have a series of meetings here in local church halls, school halls, and unfortunately if we're going to get through people over the next sort of 3, 4 or even 5 days, it's going to have to be sort of 300 or 400 people at a time.
If you haven't been contacted or have any questions, you can ring the helpline 0800 77 99 97. Work on Christchurch's temporary entertainment village in Hagley Park began today. Emily has more.
Work has begun today on preparing part of Hagley Park to host a temporary events village. The announcement was made at the end of last month that a temporary events and performance space would be put into Hagley Park. The work will include laying a temporary foundation, which will allow a large inflatable dome to be erected. 3 other large containers will become part of the entrances to the dome, and these have already been craned onto the site. After the foundation and floor is completed, the exterior of the dome will be lifted on and inflated. And in the next few weeks, temporary paths will also be laid and the area will be fenced off. The dome will be the first part of the events village to be set up and will be used for Kids Fest, which will be the first major council event to be held in the dome. And in September and October, the dome will be part of Rugby World Cup 2011 Fan Zone, where rugby fans will be able to watch matches live on the big screens instead of AMI Stadium. Another dome will be used alongside the inflatable dome later this year for events such as New Zealand Cup and Show Week. Christchurch Mayor Bob Parker says the events village will provide the city with some desperately needed events and performance venues, and that the village will allow Christchurch people to still enjoy many events. We spoke to Mayor Parker just after the village was announced.
Well, the temporary events village in North Hagley Park is another big step forward for us as a city. We've now got a venue where all those great events that are such a part of the social fabric of the city, the commercial fabric of the city, the entertainment fabric of the city can have a hub. So we needed something for Rugby World Cup. So we thought, right, North Hagley Park is the place to put our Rugby World Cup fan zone. So we're building a rugby field, putting in stands, giant screens, we've got a big dome, the ruck. But because that infrastructure is such good quality, we're also reusing that site for things like the Arts Festival, for the buskers, for the sort of family festival, Kids Fest, for all sorts of great events over the coming months. There'll be a bar there and entertainment areas. They'll be open all of the time. There is a need in the central city for a place to go and be entertained and have some fun. We just brought it all together. And putting it in North Hagley Park is great because it's open, people feel safe there, it's got a history of great events, so everybody knows where it is. And it's just another step in life returning inside the 4 avenues of Christchurch.
After massive fundraising, the debt has been cleared on the artificial hockey service at Nunweek Park. Pete Smith went down there to have a look.
We're out at Nunweek Park and it's a real chance to say well done, to actually recognise an achievement. An all-weather surface here which, promise you, gets an absolute thrashing, and with the demise of Pirate Park, of course, the demand is just going to get higher. So what a wonderful time to mark the fact, and Selwyn Meister will tell us what is so exciting about what's happened. Wonderful complex, Selwyn, but what's the real buzz about it?
Well, the fact really, Pete, that we've got another turf here in Christchurch. We've just lost, as you say, the 2 at Pirate, with this other turf at Nunweek on my right here, and this brand new one. And the one at St Bede's, we've still got 3 turfs that Canterbury Hockey can work on. And to be honest, it's not enough, but it does mean that we can continue hockey in Canterbury.
Give us an idea of cost of this turf, just for a start, and then we know what we're talking about.
Yes, so they're not cheap. This is $1.5 million we're looking at here. That includes everything you see, the dugouts, the netting, all the safety nets and so on. So you're talking $1.5 million to complete something like this.
Now that's a huge ask for a sport, isn't it, to come up with that. How did you do it?
Well, it is an enormous amount of money, and they're very high capital cost, obviously. Well, hockey's a user pays game, Pete, so every time you come and play on the turf, you pay. Club players, school players, everybody pays something. And so hockey's helped itself a lot. Up to about a third of that cost has come from hockey. So that's been huge. And I think that encourages other people, when you go and ask for money, they're encouraged to donate and help because they see that the sport's helping itself. But the council's been extremely helpful in this regard. They've brought forward some money they had in their long-term council plan to help us complete this. And then there's been all the other philanthropic and gaming trusts as well. So,
what was the timeline? You know, when did you start even thinking this thing?
Well, we were thinking it long before actually the September quake. And starting to plan a few things, but when the quakes came along and Porritt got destroyed in September, we accelerated things so that it was ready for this season. It's been we've been on it for a wee while, but there were a few things to complete, but it basically we got started on here in late February to play.
What's the history of a turf? Where do you source it from? You know, why do you get this particular surface?
Well, there's lots of components that make up a hockey turf. You've got all the civil works for a start. That's the ground, preparation of the ground, and then the asphalting, then the turf on top. And this is actually a tiger turf. There were a number of contenders tendering to be it, and we chose the tiger turf, which
Why?
is a number of factors. Basically, the players like this sort of surface, this cost, which is one of the factors, but I think just general playing characteristics are what you go for. And perhaps I should explain, this is not a watered turf. And in the turf hierarchy, the top of the line is one that doesn't have sand in it. It's watered. There's more fibre in this. As
Porritt was.
Porritt had 2 watered turfs. Yes, so we lost 2 watered turfs. We've put this one down. It's what's called a hybrid. It's got sand. I mean, looking at it, doesn't look like there's any sand, but it is buried underneath there, and it's not the top of the line product.
Playing wise, what's the difference between a water turf and this one?
Well, I haven't been playing for a wee while, Pete.
What do the people tell you?
The people tell me that the watered turf, you can actually fall on it, you can slide on it. This turf, because it's slightly more abrasive for a start, so that you don't tend to slide around on it so much, except when it's raining. We haven't got water on here, but when it's raining, it plays pretty much like a watered turf. So when it's on a wet day, the players tell me it plays pretty much like a watered turf.
Is it a longer laster, a harder wearer?
Not really, no. In terms of playing length of time, I think they're fairly similar.
What's the life expectancy of a turf like this?
Well, it varies. They'll give you a guarantee up to about 7 years, but you'd hope to get at least 10 years out of them. The turf over on number 1 here at Nunweek, with good care and attention, went for 14 years, but we've now replaced it. But it does depend on how they're kept and the amount of play they get.
Is there a lot of maintenance with them?
Not a lot, to be honest. Just sweeping now and again. Not a lot of maintenance. Sometimes the seams come apart and you have to get someone to come along and sew them up again, but generally they're low maintenance.
Just a rough idea of usage. So what is this seeing on a weekly basis?
Look, Tim Shanahan would have to come, the
just
CEO. Well, from Friday, I can tell you this much, from Friday about 4 o'clock through to Sunday about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, apart from the middle of the night periods, it's in full play. Amazing. Now, then every night, probably from about 4 o'clock through to about 10 o'clock, it'll be used. So, and often during the afternoons, you'll find a school down here. So I don't know what that adds up to in a week.
That's a thrashing, really, isn't it?
It's a lot of play.
So take that out, you know, what would have happened to your sport?
Well, if we had not replaced, if this turf wasn't here this year, Canterbury Hockey would have had just 2 turfs. And to be honest, I don't think they could have run many competitions.
So the sport may not have survived?
It would have struggled on, I guess, but a lot of people would have been back on grass or they wouldn't have played. If we'd lost both these turfs, I think you could say pretty much we wouldn't have had a sport in Canterbury. There would have been 1 turf at St Bede's, and I don't think we could do an awful lot on 1 turf.
So it makes it all the more pleasing, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a great satisfaction for us to provide a turf, but we need another 2 as quickly as we can get them, because the view was in Canterbury at the moment we need 5 turfs to operate, and we've got 3, 2 here, 1 at St Bede's, and we need 2 more.
Any indication of where you are in the pecking order?
Not really. I'm not involved at that table at the moment, but we're very hopeful we can replace the two from Porritt with international watered turf somewhere in the city, so we can attract back top hockey. Because to be honest, Pete, they won't play National Hockey League or any high-level hockey on anything other than the watered turf. So in the moment in the city, we've only got the one at St Bede's, at Marist Park. That isn't really set up for top-line hockey. It's very good for club play, but it doesn't have all the facilities you need to run a National Hockey League match.
Could it be a hindrance to Olympics next year?
Well, what's unfortunately happening is that our top players are going elsewhere to where the national squads are gathering at the moment, and we can't blame them because we don't really have enough facilities here to train them here at the moment. But in the future, we hope Christchurch can become a real hub again when we've got enough turf time to give adequate practice for the top players. Squads can come and train here, and we can become the home of New Zealand hockey again, as we used to be.
And of course, what's happened since September is you can't just shut the door now and say, look, we've got this one done, that'll do, because it's going to start all over again, isn't it? You're just going to have to start again.
Yes, we're going to have to start again. Absolutely right, Pete. Yep.
All right. So, but it's a great story, isn't it, that we've at least got a facility that, as I say, gets an absolute thrashing. So without it, hockey could have been in real strife.
Welcome back. The recent aftershocks have disrupted many businesses, including our own. Monday's earthquake caused damage to the roof and ceilings and some walls of CTV's new headquarters, the Mainland Press Building. That's CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.